A man in our community walked 40 acres last spring. Good price, good road, pretty ground, the kind that makes a man reach for his checkbook before he has finished looking. He walked it for 20 minutes, got in his truck and did not buy it. That 20 minutes saved him $40,000. The ground would not take a septic system. None. The family who bought it 3 weeks later owns 40 acres they cannot put a house on. And you are going to stand on a piece of ground someday. Maybe you have a listing open in another window right now, a green field and a price that seems a little too kind. That price is not the danger. Land is the one thing you buy that you cannot give back. There is no refund on 40 acres. He was not lucky. He was looking at 12 things in a fixed order. So today I am giving you all 12, in the order we walk them, from what you can see before the truck door opens, down to what only paper will ever tell you. 2 cost a few $100s to check. Most cost nothing but a morning. And one of them, I will tell you when we reach it, is the only one you cannot fix after you have signed your name. If you would rather walk away from 40 acres than be sold them, subscribe. This is the whole procedure, start to finish. My grandfather charged nobody for it, and neither will I. Now, why should a list like this exist at all? Because among my people a man does not buy land alone, and he does not look once. He takes someone older, someone who has already been wrong about a piece of ground and paid for it. They walk it together slowly, and the older man points at a stand of rushes, at the fall of the land, at the line of a neighbor's fence, and says what each one means. We buy ground beside each other and expect to still be beside each other in 60 years. That changes how carefully a man looks. The English buy land the way they buy a car. They fall in love first, then arrange the money to justify the feeling. We do the opposite. We walk onto a piece of ground looking for a reason to leave it. If we cannot find one in 12 tries, it is good ground. Here are the 12 in order. Number 12. Before you get out of the truck, before you even get in it, understand that every picture you have of this place is a picture of the past. The listing photographs were taken by a man paid to sell it, and the mapping sites are older than people assume. On a gravel road, 3 to 8 years can pass between one pass of the camera car and the next. So find the capture date. It is printed right on the image, small down in the corner, and almost nobody looks at it. Timber gets cut. A pond gets drained. A creek moves. Then get out, walk to the middle, and turn a slow full circle. Because here is the mistake almost everyone makes. They study the parcel, they walk the corners, they look at the trees, they picture the house. They never once look outward. The parcel is rarely the problem. The surroundings are the problem. So name out loud what sits on every side. What is upwind? What is upstream? What is at the end of that lane? What that low building is half a mile off? Whether the road you came in on is the only road? And one thing in that circle deserves its own moment. The fire question. Not the fire, whether anyone will insure you against it. Between 2020 and 2025, insurers declined to renew more than 2.8 million homeowner policies in fire-prone parts of this country. In California, the state's insurer of last resort now caps out at $750,000 and pays actual cash value, not what rebuilding actually costs. So the land may be fine, and the insurance impossible. A house nobody will cover is a house no bank will lend against, which is a house you cannot sell. My grandfather's rule from 1938, when the county first sent men around with cameras: never buy a thing you have only seen in a picture, no matter who held the camera. The question before you leave: What has changed here in 5 years? And what would 2 insurance agents write on this address? Number 11. Now walk the ground itself and read its fall. People think slope is about the view. Slope is about money. You want 2 different things from one property and they fight each other. You want flat ground for the house, for the foundation, for the barn, for the driveway that will not wash out every spring. And you want fall for the septic, because a drain field works on gravity, and gravity needs somewhere to go. Flat everywhere and the water sits. Steep everywhere and you pay for every yard of it. Here is how we read it. Walk the parcel and find the flattest quarter-acre on it. That is your house site, not the prettiest spot, the flattest one. Now look downhill of it. Is there gentle fall nearby for the drain field? If the answer is no, the answer to the whole property may be no. And the numbers are not soft here. Many places will not permit a drain field on a grade steeper than 30% at all. Past about 15%, you are usually into a pressure-dosed or specially engineered system rather than a simple gravity one, and that is a different price altogether. Slope also means your driveway erodes, your equipment works harder and less safely, and your foundation costs more. My grandfather said it in 5 words: flat for the house, fall for the water. The question before you leave: where exactly does the house sit, and where exactly does the water go? Number 10. Same walk, different question, not the fall of the land, the standing of the water. Every piece of ground has a story about water, and the ground tells it whether or not anyone wants you to hear it. Here is how we read it. Look for the low places and look at what is in them. A dark line on the tree trunks. Gravel fanned across grass, or trash and stems combed all one direction. That is a flood path, and it is the honest record of where water goes when there is too much of it. Ground that is soft in August. If it is wet in the dry month, it is a swamp in the wet one. And go to the federal flood maps before you ever drive out. Free, public, searchable by address in about a minute. High-risk zones carry a 1% chance of flooding in any given year, 1 in 4 odds across a 30-year mortgage, and if you borrow against the place, flood insurance is not a choice. Then find the high ground and find out who owns it, because everything that runs downhill becomes yours. Runoff, silt, fertilizer, spray drift, mud off a bare field. Stand at your lowest corner and look up. Everything you can see from their drains toward you. And do not assume the law will help you. States handle runoff between neighbors under 3 different traditions, and which one you are standing in decides whether that neighbor owes you anything at all. One more trap. Wet ground can be regulated ground. If it holds water and grows the plants that go with water, part of your parcel may be a wetland. And a wetland is not simply land you may fill in because you would rather have it dry. Get that wrong, and the 1 acre you meant to build on is the 1 acre you may not touch. The question before you leave: where does the water stand here in April, and who is above me? Number 9. Now stop walking and look down. This is the check I most want to give you, because it costs nothing and almost nobody does it. The weeds are a soil report. They are free, and they were written by the ground itself. Plants do not grow where they like. They grow where they can. So what is already standing there is a truthful statement about the ground underneath, how wet it is, how sour, how starved, how packed. Here is how we read it. Cattails, rushes, sedges, willows, those are water plants. They have hollow stems and special tissue in their roots for exactly one reason: to breathe in soil that has no air in it. A stand of rushes in the middle of a dry-looking field means that field is not dry. Broadleaf docks and heavy thistle usually mean ground worked hard and then left. Bare compacted paths where nothing will grow tell you what a tractor did over 20 years. Then take a shovel out of the truck bed, always carry a shovel, and dig down a foot in 3 different places. Dark and crumbling is good. Sticky red or gray clay that shines when you smear it is slow ground. Gray or blue-green soil with rust-colored freckles around the old root channels is the fingerprint of ground that sits saturated for weeks at a time. That last one matters more than anything else so far, and the reason why is the next check. The question before you leave: what is growing here that I did not expect? Number 8. And now we come to the one that ended the story I opened with. Perc is short for percolation. All it means is, how fast does water soak away into this ground? You dig a hole, you fill it with water, and you time how far the level drops. That is the whole test, and it decides whether a piece of land is a homestead or a very expensive picnic spot. Here is why. If there is no sewer line and out where you are looking, there is no sewer line, your house needs a septic system. A septic system does not make waste disappear. It settles it in a tank, then trickles the liquid out into a drain field, where soil and the life inside it finish the work. That only functions if the soil drains at the right speed. Too slow, heavy clay, a high water table, rock near the surface, and the field floods and surfaces. Too fast, coarse sand and gravel, and it runs straight through untreated toward the groundwater. Either way, the county says no. And when the county says no, they are not saying pay more. On a parcel with no other way to handle waste, they are saying you may not build a dwelling here. The land does not become expensive. It becomes unbuildable. So we test before we buy, never after. The cost varies by county more than almost anything else on this list. A couple of shallow holes dug by hand can be a few $100s. A proper test with an excavator, an engineer, and a septic designer standing there runs well past $1,000, and past $2,000 in some places. Most people land somewhere around $1,000. Now set that beside what it protects you from. A conventional gravity system might run $5,000 to $15,000 installed. If your soil fails and the county will accept an engineered or mound system instead, you are commonly looking at 2 to 3 times that $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 and higher on a hard site. And if nothing at all will pass, the number is not a number. It is the whole purchase price. So here is the rule, and I want you to write it down. You do not pay for a perc test on land you already own. You make your offer contingent on the perc test, in writing, before any money is at risk. If the seller will not agree to that, he has told you something about the ground without having to say a word. Get it wrong, and you own the man's 40 acres from the beginning of this video. The question before you leave: has this ground ever been tested, and may I see the paperwork? Number 7. And here is the one nobody warns you about. If anyone ever lived on this ground, a farmhouse, a tenant house, a milking parlor, a cabin that burned in 1960, then somewhere on this parcel there is very likely an old well and an old septic system, and neither is on any map you were handed. An abandoned well is not a hole in a field. It is an open pipe running straight down into the drinking water, and whatever goes in the top comes out in the aquifer your new well will draw from, which is why most states will not let you simply leave it. It must be decommissioned properly, equipment pulled, disinfected, filled and sealed, and the record filed. Sealing a shallow one might be a few $100s. A deep, large diameter one runs into the thousands, in some states typically 1 to 5,000. And an old buried septic tank is its own bill and its own hazard, because Rotted lids collapse under a person's weight. And it is not only wells. Rural land has been the cheapest place in America to make something disappear for 100 years. Old tires in a gully, drums of motor oil, a burn pit, a fuel tank, construction debris pushed into a low spot and covered over with grass and thyme. Here is how we find all of it. Walk the old foundations, the fence corners, the gullies, the back acres, because nobody ever dumped anything where it could be seen from the road. Look for a low ring, a rusted pipe stub, a concrete pad with no building on it, ground that sinks, rust and glass working up through the surface. And ask the neighbors, because an old neighbor knows where the old house stood. Now the part that should make you careful. If contamination turns up after you close, you can become the party responsible for cleaning it up, though someone else put it there, and though you never knew. That liability has no tidy ceiling. The protection is a formal environmental assessment, done before you buy, and one commonly runs between about $1,800 and $4,000. That is a great deal of money until you price a cleanup, which is measured in a different order of magnitude entirely. You do not need one on every parcel. You need one whenever the history smells wrong. And this goes in writing. Ask the seller to disclose every well, tank, and septic system ever installed here, and get the answer on paper. The question before you leave: what was here before? Where did they get their water? And what did they do with what they were done with? Number 6. Now the question the whole homestead rests on: is there water? How deep? And what will it cost to reach? Because a beautiful piece of land with no water is a campsite. Here is how we read it, and this is the single best trick I can hand you today. Most states publish well logs, the driller's own records of every well put down in that area, with the depth they had to go and what they hit on the way. They are public. They are usually free, and almost no buyer ever looks at them. Pull the logs for the wells around your parcel and you will know, before you have spent $1, roughly how deep you must drill and whether the neighbors found good water or poor. Then do the other half. Knock on 2 doors and ask what they paid and whether their well has ever run dry in a hard August. Now the money. Drilling commonly runs about $25 to $65 a foot, and hard rock costs more than sand. A complete system with pump, casing, and pressure tank most often lands somewhere between $3,000 and $15,000, and deep wells push past that. There is a family out west I know of looking at wells 300 to 500 feet deep in their area. That is $30,000 to $70,000 of exposure, with no guarantee the water is any good when they get there. That is the part to sit with. You can pay for the hole and still not have water. The question before you leave: how deep is the nearest well and has it ever gone dry? Number 5. Put the shovel away. Everything from here is invisible, and this is where the expensive mistakes live. You drove in here on something. A lane, a gravel track, a 2-rut through somebody's field. Here is the question that matters, and it is not the one people ask. Not can you drive in, may you? Forever. In writing. A road you can see is not a right you own. What you need is a deeded easement, a written, recorded right-of-way filed at the county courthouse that travels with the land to every owner after you. Not a handshake. Not the Wilsons have never minded. Not 30 years of habit. Recorded. The law does know an easement by necessity, for land with no other way out, but it generally requires proving the 2 parcels were once a single ownership that got split. That is a lawsuit, not a plan. A man wrote to tell me he used the same access route for 12 years. Then the neighbor sold, The new owner put up a fence, and he was landlocked with a deed and taxes, and no legal way to reach his own ground. Land you cannot legally reach is worth a fraction of land you can. Sometimes it is worth nothing at all. The question before you leave: show me the recorded easement by book and page. And before we go on, I told you at the start that one thing on this list cannot be fixed after you sign. It is not this one. Access can sometimes be bought or negotiated, painful as that is. The one I mean is number 1, and nobody checks it. Number 4. Now we read the deed, and we read it before the offer, not after. Because a deed can carry restrictions written by someone who died before you were born, and they bind you anyway. They are called covenants, restrictions recorded against the land itself, not against a person. They run with the ground. They bind every owner in turn, whether or not that owner ever read them, whether or not anyone mentioned them, whether or not there is a homeowners association anywhere in sight. And people assume this is a suburban problem. It is not. Rural parcels carry them constantly, usually from whoever subdivided the old farm. No mobile homes, no second dwelling, no livestock, no business use, no structure under a certain square footage, nothing built for 2 years, all outbuildings to match the house. Read that list again, and notice that it quietly forbids nearly everything a homestead is. Here is how we read it. You ask for the title work and the recorded restrictions in writing, and you read every line before you make an offer. Not before closing, before the offer. Because after you close, you have inherited every one of them, and enforcement is not theoretical. It is fines, liens, and in a bad case a court order to tear down what you built, at your expense. Get it wrong, and you own land you may not do the thing on that you bought it for. The question before you leave: send me every recorded restriction on this parcel today. Number 3. Now we look underneath. Most people believe that when they buy land, they buy all of it down as far as it goes. In much of this country, that is simply not so. The rights to what is under the ground can be severed from the surface and sold separately, and once they are severed, they stay severed, often for generations. In the oil and gas states, this is not the exception, it is closer to the rule. The federal government alone holds severed mineral rights under some 63 million acres. And here is the part that stops people cold. Where the estates are split, the mineral estate is generally the dominant one. The owner of what is beneath has the right to get at it, which can mean an access road, a pad, equipment, and a well on your surface, without you having any say in whether it happens. Reasonable use is required of them, and damages are often owed to you, but the right of access is theirs. So you check. The title search tells you whether the minerals were severed and who holds them today. Ask plainly what is being conveyed, surface only or surface and minerals. And if it is surface only, ask what is under this ground that anyone would ever want. My grandfather would not have understood this one. In his day, a man's ground was his ground, top to bottom. That changed while nobody was looking. The question before you leave: am I buying the minerals, and if not, who owns them? Number 2, and this is the widest gap in the whole business, the gap between what a listing implies and what the county will actually allow. A listing says perfect for your dream homestead. A listing is an advertisement. Zoning is the law, and the two have never once been introduced. So before you make an offer, you call the county planning or zoning office. You give them the parcel number, and you ask them plainly what may be done on this land. They will tell you. It is their job. The call is free, and almost nobody makes it. Here is what to ask, and ask all of it. May I build a dwelling at all, and how many? Is there a minimum square footage so a small cabin is out? May I put a mobile or manufactured home here, or is that prohibited? May I live in an RV or a camper while I build, and for how long? Is there a time limit to finish once I start? Then outbuildings. May I put up a barn or a shop before there is a house? How many, how big, how far from the lines? What are the setbacks from every boundary, because setbacks can eat a small parcel alive? Then livestock. How many animals per acre, and which kinds? A great many rural zones that permit horses do not permit poultry at any scale, and plenty will let you keep animals but not sell what those animals produce. Then water and waste. What septic systems will they accept here? Is a composting or alternative system permitted or forbidden? May you catch rainwater, and do not laugh, because in Colorado you are held to 2 barrels and 110 gallons total for outdoor use only. That is a state law about who owns the rain. Then the business question. May you sell eggs or produce or lumber or furniture from this address? Home occupation rules decide whether your homestead can ever pay for itself. Get it wrong, and you have bought a very large yard. The question before you leave: what is this parcel zoned, and may I have that in writing? Number 1. And this is the one I promised you, the one that cannot be fixed after you sign, and the one almost nobody checks. Every other item is about the land as it is. This one is about the land as it is going to be. The land beside yours is not yours, and whatever comes to it comes to you. A parcel can pass all 11 other checks: good soil, good perc, good water, clean title, recorded access, sensible zoning. And then in the 3rd year the field across the road is rezoned, and what arrives is a pipeline right-of-way, or a quarry, or a solar installation, or a warehouse, or one of these enormous data centers now going up on farm ground, because they need flat land, cheap power, and a great deal of water. You cannot appeal your way out of it afterward. You bought the view and the quiet and the dark sky, and not one of those 3 was ever on the deed. Now let me be honest with you, because this is where people get worked up and stop thinking. The research is not one-sided. Studies of land near large solar arrays have generally not found the value damage people expect. Some found neighboring farm and vacant ground actually rose. So I am not telling you everything coming is a catastrophe. Some of it is a lease check. I am telling you that not knowing is the catastrophe. The change is permanent. It is decided by people you will never meet, and the paperwork was public before you bought. Here is how we check it. Call the county planning office and ask what applications, rezonings, and special use permits are pending within a few miles. Look at the future land use map, not the current zoning, the future map, which is the county saying out loud what it intends that ground to become. Check the utility and pipeline filings with the state. Read the last 6 months of Planning Commission minutes, all public, all free. The question before you leave, and it is the last one: what has been filed near this parcel, and what does the county's future map say this whole area becomes? Now, I have given you 12 checks. Let me give you the 5 ways good people skip them, because knowing the list is not the same as using it. The first is falling in love before the paperwork. A view will do this to a man faster than anything else. Once you love it, every fact you learn afterward gets bent to fit the feeling. Do the paper first. Love it second. The second is trusting the photographs. We covered it, and I am saying it twice on purpose, because it is the easiest one to slip back into. The third is making an offer that is not contingent on the perc test. This one mistake is the whole $40,000. A contingency costs nothing to write, and it is the difference between walking away and owning ground you cannot build on. The fourth is taking a verbal promise of access. The neighbor who says, "You'll always have the lane," means it sincerely. He also will not own that farm forever, and his promise does not survive him. And the fifth is the biggest, and the one my people would find strangest of all: walking the land alone. Take somebody who has bought before. Take somebody who has been wrong before. A second man on the ground sees the thing your excitement is hiding from you. So here it is, the way you would actually do it on the day. At the kitchen table before you drive, pull the well logs, open the flood maps, look up the zoning and the future land use map, and find the capture date on every image you have. In the truck at the gate, the stale pictures, the slow full circle, the fire and insurance calls, the high ground and who owns it. On foot, the flattest quarter acre, the fall for the drain field, the low places and the flood line, the weeds, the shovel, 3 holes a foot deep. Then the money checks, the perc test under contingency, wells and tanks disclosed in writing, an environmental assessment if the history smells wrong, well depth and well cost. Then the paper before you ever sign, the recorded easement by book and page, every covenant read line by line, minerals severed or not, zoning in writing, and the future map. And what does the whole pass cost? The perc test, a few hundred to about 2,000. A boundary survey, commonly 500 to a couple thousand on a small parcel, more on big, wooded or hilly ground. Title work, a few hundred, with owner's title insurance usually well under 1% of the price. An environmental assessment only if you need one. Call it a few $1,000s all in, on the heavy end. The rest cost nothing but one careful morning. Set that against $40,000 for a drain field that will never be permitted, against a well that goes 500 feet and finds nothing, against a lane the new neighbor is entitled to close. That is the whole trade, a morning and a few $1,000s against the one purchase in your life that has no refund. The man in our community did not have a gift. He had an order to look in, and the patience to finish it before he reached for his checkbook. Now you have the same order. If you are looking at land right now, what is the one thing you are most worried about? Water, fire zone, acreage, slope, access. Tell me below. And for those of you who already bought, what did you miss? Say it plainly so the next person reading does not repeat it. I read every single one. Subscribe, and you will have the rest of this as it comes. Next time I am going to walk you through 15 communities in this country that still live off the grid entirely, where they are, how they hold together, and what they pay for the privilege of needing nobody. Until then, walk the ground, ask the 12, never sign in a hurry. And remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.